Back in 2010, the Australian film Tomorrow When the War Began was released, and I was immediately absolutely in love with it. I loved the idea of seeing Australian teenagers at war with an invading force, young action heroes that I could identify with. It just got me as an action junkie teenager. And yet I had no idea that back in 1984, America did the exact same thing with Red Dawn.
Ho 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 ho! Delightfully devilish, Seymour.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to Delightfully Devilish, the show where we discuss films that all at once meet the criteria of being the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host, Jukebox Harry, and today we're going to be talking about a film which DVD verdicts refer to as a Republican wet dream manifested into an Orwellian nightmare. Red Dawn is a 1984 war-themed teenage action thriller which has consistently popped up on lists of the most popular conservative movies of all time, and it also has a notoriously controversial history. It began as a screenplay titled 10 Soldiers written by Kevin Reynolds and was shopped around until it ended up at MGM, who decided, fuck it, let's make it a teenage Rambo, and let's bring director John Millius on. John Millius is notorious in Hollywood circles as being one of the most prolific and loud conservative filmmakers, and he accepted to direct Red Dawn under the grounds that he was paid $1.25 million and given a gun of his choice. He walked around on set with a loaded pistol at all times. You can't make this shit up. Millius brought together a conservative think tank to flesh out the film, which included former War General Alexander Haig, who served as the Secretary of State under Ronald Reagan. They ended up coming up with a narrative where the Soviet Union and Cuba would join forces with, get this, a left-wing Mexican regime to try to take over America. And apparently Haig's approach to the script was so downright conservative that it even intimidated John Millius. When I first watched Red Dawn as a teenager, I did not hold it to the highest standard of filmmaking that I hold movies to today. I just got lost in the action junkie teenage fantasy that was presented up on screen. Now, as an adult, as someone who does hold movies to a higher standard, and as someone who has a slightly deeper understanding of the implications of war and mortality, I think I'm going to have a bit of a different opinion. But, let's find out. Red Dawn begins in an alternate 1980s history where the North Atlantic Treaty Association is disbanded, leaving the US without European support. And after the title card, we begin the story in the small town of Calumet, Colorado, where a school teacher stops teaching mid-sentence to go outside and investigate Soviet troops parachuting into fields.
What's going on, my friend?
It really surprises me that a teacher was approaching someone with a loaded gun so casually, but I think gun violence is like so typical in America that this is a normal thing to do. And instead of the teenagers shooting up a school for once, it's the soldiers who do that. Fucking foreigners taking away work from hardworking Americans. Shooting up schools is a job strictly for white male Americans. Fuck off.
They took our jobs! They took your jobs!
They took your jam!
They deliberately try to destroy as much as possible, including this door. Like, they really fucking hate that door for some reason. A pre-famed Patrick Swayze comes to pick up a pre-famed Charlie Sheen and some of their friends to flee the town.
I need to be driving a bus right now.
We're getting out of here.
They grab supplies from a sporting goods store outside of town and flee to the outskirts while the Soviet forces begin to set up an occupation in the town.
But our families, huh? What about them? I just want to go home.
Sincerity's overwhelming.
I think I'm gonna wait.
How long do you think we can survive up here on olives and Rice Krispies? People are being killed.
Just relax and breathe.
You're not going anywhere. It's too dangerous to go into town.
I say we vote on it.
No.
This isn't the big game, Mr. Quarterback. He can go wherever he wants.
No.
You're such a goddamn jock.
Most of the young actors in Red Dawn would not hit their stride until after this movie was released, and since John Millius is a director known for not holding such a high standard of acting out of his cast, yeah, you don't get many great performances out of this movie. In fact, the only actor who really hit his stride before this movie was C. Thomas Howell. He's okay in this movie, and he peaked in The Outsiders in 1983.
I got him!
Never shoot twice.
Why?
If you shoot twice, they can find you.
I'm pretty sure the first gunshot is going to make about as much sound as the second. You know, that's going to alarm people. People don't just, like, turn down the volume on their gun between gunshots.
All right. All right.
Hey. His blood is yours. You know, my dad said that once you do that, there's gonna be something different about you.
Oh, that's funny. My dad always said, Harry, don't touch the fucking power lines hanging over the fence at our old house. He was... yeah, he was right. They decide to return to town.
I've never seen a tank like that before.
Sorry, do you see tanks particularly often in your small town Colorado life? Somehow they're able to roam pretty freely in the town despite the intense Soviet occupation.
You don't understand. They know who all of you are. They're looking for you.
Are they though? Nobody's making an effort to question them. They've got a lot of freedom to roam this town.
Look, have you seen my father?
Today, Junior!
They took a lot of people away. People that they thought were going to make trouble for them. People that had guns or things they wanted. They just took them away.
Where?
Re-education camps, that's what they call it.
The brothers, Jed and Matt, go to visit their father who is being kept in one of these camps.
Don't talk, don't say anything. I was tough on both of you. I did things that made you hate me sometimes. But you understand now, don't you?
It's all part of a TED Talk on how you have to raise your kids in a conservative patriarchal manner, so they're always ready in case the Soviet Union and Cuba ever decide to team up with left-wing Mexico to take over small-town America. Yeah, because that's happened so many times since Red Dawn came out.
Boys! Avenge me! Avenge me!
None of the drama in Red Dawn really has any substance. You're just gonna find yourself waiting for the action to start.
What happened to my dad and mom?
Your dad is dead, Robert. They shot him.
Ah, that's a shame.
Russians found some guns missing, so they shot him for aiding guerrillas.
What do you mean aiding guerrillas? He never aided anybody. And we just took the stuff.
That sentence sounds like Patrick Swayze genuinely struggled to actually get it out. These local oldies asked the boys to take care of their granddaughters, played by Leah Thompson from Back to the Future and Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing. Like I said, there is an ensemble cast of talented performers in this movie, and none of them are particularly great. A group of Soviet soldiers make an impromptu stop up in the mountains, apparently just to take photos in front of American monuments. They find the group and try to make an arrest, but Charlie Sheen spears one of them with an arrow before Ferris Bueller's sister shoots him. The rest of the group joins in the assault, butchering the Soviets like hunters. One of them tries to get away, but Swayze isn't down for that.
Well, we're waiting.
They really drew that scene out for dramatic effect, but they got nothing at all.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
There were people. Yeah, well, so was my dad.
Really?
You'd think this is where the action takes off, but really it's just a tease. We still have a lot of waiting to do. But we do get to see the brother's dad executed with a group of other adults.
Don't cry. Don't you ever cry again, as long as you live.
Boys don't have feelings, they have muscles.
Jennifer Grey gets accosted by a group of Soviets, but surprises them with an explosive loaded basket. They had to know that the Russians were going to take that basket and get it to a safe distance away from her. Then they had to know that they weren't going to shoot her for killing one of their own, pursuing her with a knife instead apparently. I understand that this is dangerous, but the sheer amount of danger they put her in is it's just such a fucking disregard for human life. Whatever, the teenagers pop up and open fire on them.
It's a trap!
Yeah, there's nothing to transition these characters into soldiers. We're just dropped into a story where suddenly they are soldiers out of the blue. Whatever, this is where the action starts to take off, and this is where the film gets good. Another group lined up for execution gets rescued by everyone who have become an elite guerrilla force with a name.
Wolverines!
Regardless how easy it is to mock the lack of drama in this film, I fucking love that moment. The way he says that line with such jingoistic passion, it's... America. Instantly, the teenagers have all become pretty good marksmen, shooting down the communists like fish in a barrel, or students in an American high school. I know I've already made that joke, but seriously, America, gun control is important. Also, listen to the music that plays during the attacks. This isn't the music of a film trying to capture the horrors of war. This is the music of a film championing the heroisms of its characters. But of course, it's never in disguise where the priorities lie.
Miss, maybe you speak at me for a minute, too.
I'll be right back, okay?
And Leah Thompson stumbles across a surviving US soldier.
You've seen too many movies.
That line is way more meta than the writers intended. The soldier delivers a monotonous speech about how the communists coordinated the attack, and the actor himself, Powers Booth, even admitted that Millius cut the emotional core out of his character. In the script, he was originally supposed to be a more complex character, a right-wing yet anti-war figure who served as the voice of reason. In the final cut of the film, he just got reduced to being a one-dimensional plot device.
Well, who is on our side?
600 million screaming Chinamen.
Yeah, those Chinamen are probably screaming because Disney tried to put a person of color into Star Wars movies. Now, here's the thing. Red Dawn is notoriously anti-communist, and in the modern day, China has become the exact Orwellian nightmare that Red Dawn is depicting. If you look at the way people are being kept in camps in this movie, that's exactly what China has been doing to 1.5 million Muslims. What's going on in Xinjiang is fucking disgusting. It is a severe breach of human rights. When they remade Red Dawn, China was originally going to be the villain, and interestingly enough, that makes sense. But I do also want to mention that using special effects, they actually changed it so that the villain in Red Dawn ended up being North Korea. Yeah, that movie pulled a Disney and bent over backwards for China. It also bombed and got scathing reviews, so fuck that. The Wolverines continue their attacks, and you'll notice that the cast are actually really good with their guns. This is because they underwent an intensive 8-week military training course prior to the filming of Red Dawn. Even if you don't believe the premise of the movie, the way the actors wield their weapons do make them seem like fairly convincing teenage soldiers.
You think you're tough? Eating beans every day?
This nigga eating beans!
Powers Booth's character ends up leading the Wolverines in coordinating attacks, leading to a successful attack on an airbase.
Oh, friend! Oh, new friend! Oh, friend! Please be my friend! Oh, friend! Oh, friend!
And just look at that airplane driver's face when the soldier reveals that he's about to blow him up with a grenade. He's very aware that he's starring in a film. There is no sense of impending danger.
And boom goes the dynamite.
We break from the action momentarily so the characters can play football, just because.
That's boring. You're boring, everybody. Quit boring everyone!
It's also worth noting that Leia Thompson and the soldier had a love scene together in the original cut of the film, which might have actually made the story a little more complex, but test audiences were put off by the age difference, so it was cut. Leia Thompson herself said she took on the role in Red Dawn specifically for that scene, so cutting it is a big fuck you to her. Although at the same time, she said her time on the set of this film was the best time she'd ever had on the set of a movie, so I guess all's well that ends well. And the fight begins to proceed into the winter. This would be a nice time to write in something about the characters forced to face the struggles of surviving a harsh winter as teenagers. But of course the filmmakers don't want to deal with any actual drama, you know, even though the temperatures were so low on the set of this movie that it's been consistently ranked as one of the coldest temperatures of any film set ever. While fighting out in the winter, the Wolverines come under fire from 2 Soviet tanks. During filming of Red Dawn, the CIA was actually contacted out of concern that Russian tanks were seen on American soil. They were relieved when they discovered it was just for the sake of this movie. The fight leads to one of the Wolverines getting killed. I'm back! Eat me! The soldier gets killed as well, but he manages to go out with a bang, and the Wolverines manage to escape the scene. Later on, the communists come hunting using tracking equipment and whiteface. I guess all those right-wing people who are pissed off that white chicks are still up on streaming services while movies depicting blackface aren't allowed will probably get offended during this scene. The Wolverines wipe them out again and take one of them prisoner.
No one gives a damn who you are! They're gonna hurt him!
If this bothers you, then why has it been so easy for you to kill people inside of battle and outside of battle in every other scene leading up to this? Why are we pretending to have some drama now?
I don't know, but it's a bloody good question.
The team discovers that the Russians have been tracking the Wolverines by forcing one of them to swallow a tracking chip and reveal their location. Jen and Matt get into a fight about whether they should execute the prisoner or not.
Tell me, what's the difference between us and them? Because we live here.
As predicted, Swayze easily executes the prisoner, but can't bring himself to kill one of their own. But C. Thomas Howell does that without flinching.
Oh, snap!
And that is a dark moment, one that really takes you by surprise. And yet the film still fails to do anything with the dramatic potential of this scene. Seriously, Red Dawn has its head so far up its own ass with self-seriousness, but when things get dark and dramatic, it doesn't have the conviction to follow through on any of this. But they do make sure to have Patrick Swayze try and cry. The team discovers a cargo truck that drops off a couple of supplies, seemingly by accident. After going in to collect, they get ambushed by an advanced Soviet aircraft. Jennifer Grey gets shot and the team split up, riding off on horses that keep coming and going from the movie. And then the music turns chiefly optimistic again. I'm sorry, how can you be so positive and jingoistic when this kid is just about to get killed on the screen? Like, seriously, this is a tragedy. This is something dramatic and sad. And yet you're all, yeah, fucking America. Jennifer Grey asked to be left with a loaded grenade so she can go out with a bang, and it's successful. With only 4 Wolverines remaining, Jed and Matt decide to form a full assault and ambush the Soviet headquarters while Leah Thompson and Brad Savage escape to safe territory. Matt gets wounded during the attack and Jed makes a very strange decision.
You lose.
That scene has never made sense to me. Now, those brothers would have been raised in a conservative patriarchal way where the phrase is typically shoot first, ask questions later. And yet, he stopped to ask a question. He stopped to taunt this guy and give him a chance to open fire on him. That's such a fucking stupid mistake. I mean, you might want to argue that he doesn't want to shoot a guy in the back, but his father also probably would have taught him that you can go against certain ideals if you're in the middle of battle, if you're fighting to protect your country from an invading force. Like, what the fuck was he doing? After killing the guy, Jed carries the wounded Matt and gets spotted by a colonel who finds himself unable to kill the brothers after sensing so much loss and just lets them go. So after being conservative for the entire film, suddenly we're supposed to have some kind of sympathy for the villain? You know, he has more humanity than like any of the other characters in the story.
Apparently.
In a sense, his gesture is rather hollow because the two crawl into a park where they succumb to their wounds, but the others manage to make it to safety.
We're free now.
It's over. We're free.
Yes, but at what cost, Mr. Garrison?
And the film ends on a hollow monologue about how deep and disturbing everything is. Oh, never mind, the credits are rolling over a war theme march. Alright, so is Red Dawn a good film?
A little bit.
There is so much to say about a film like Red Dawn, because there are so many hollow things that I really enjoy, and so many deep things that are just fucking terrible about the movie. For the negative, it's all about the script. Red Dawn has nothing to say about war. It doesn't delve into its characters at all, which often means that it's difficult to differentiate them from each other. It doesn't clearly flesh out the political implications of war, nor does it deal with what it really means to kill someone, even though there are moments where it likes to pretend that it does. All Red Dawn does is promote the conservative ideal that American teenagers should automatically be ready to fight and give up their lives in the face of war, and that's such a narrow take. John Millius has actually convinced himself that Red Dawn is an anti-war movie, and that could not be further from the truth. The only thing vaguely anti-war about Red Dawn is that some of the characters get killed, and that one scene where they execute one of their own. That scene in question has the most dramatic substance in the film, and it's still barely any. And when the other characters die, there isn't any feeling to it. There's something vaguely close to it when Patrick Swayze holds his dying brother in his arms at the end of the movie, but even then it's obvious and hollow. The best example of Red Dawn's failure to deal with dying in war is when C. Thomas Howell's character stands up and proudly dies as a soldier when the music champions him. The film wants us to think of this as a brave sacrifice, and to some extent it is, but the substance is completely absent. Even when I gave glowing reviews to Red Dawn when I was younger, I still felt like barely any emotion watching it. Minus, of course, excitement over the action. As a blanket statement, Red Dawn is a very flat movie, and none of the cast elevate it anywhere. Aside from C. Thomas Howell's iconic delivery of the word Wolverines, and a few moments where 32-year-old Patrick Swayze hams it up ridiculously, the performances are completely forgettable. Simply because Milius has no regard for them, and if you've seen his film Conan the Barbarian, you'll know he can't really spot good acting. It's also worth mentioning the irony of Charlie Sheen being in such a conservative pro-war movie when he would go on to star in Oliver Stone's Platoon, one of the most brilliant and notoriously anti-war movies of all time. But he would also go on to star in Navy SEALs, a shameless military recruitment film done in the style of Top Gun. Top Gun, which he would go on to lend spoof in the film Hot Shots. Fucking hell. Charlie Sheen's had a very strange career when it comes to war and action movies. Red Dawn is simply a film with its head very far up its own ass. It takes itself way too seriously for a film with such an absurdist plot. If it was a little lighter and focused on trying to occasionally have some character or even a little bit of humor, then it would be far less pretentious. But John Millius set out to make a very serious film and clearly offered very little negotiations to his vision. So the result is a John Wayne-esque airtight conservative military fantasy, which is basically a teenage version of the Green Berets. One that was honored by the gun owners of America for dramatically depicting the importance in our time of the Second Amendment. Like I said, you can't make this shit up. But I do have to say, after all this, I still enjoy Red Dawn. Not on an intellectual level, simply as an action junkie. Being an action-obsessed teenage boy, this is where I wanted to be. I wanted to be on the front lines as a guerrilla military force fighting to protect my country. And seeing this as a teenager, it's awesome to see action heroes you can identify with, even if they have no substance to go with them. Watching Red Dawn, I always ask myself, what would I do in a situation where my hometown was invaded by an opposing military force? And as a teenager, I always thought, fuck yeah, I'd be on the front lines shooting everyone. Now that I'm a bit more mature and I've got more to live for because I actually have friends and I realize how much my family matters to me, yeah, I don't think I'd be that jingoistic. I'd like to think I'd be doing something to resist against an oppressive force, but I don't know where I'd be. I'd probably be hiding out somewhere, maybe picking off people if they came out that way. I don't know. Hard to say. When it actually comes to the action, that's where Red Dawn peaks. Considering that in the modern day, action is often dominated by a reliance on either shaky cam or visual effects, it's very refreshing to see old-fashioned action done with full practicality. Things are choreographed and shot well, the action is intense and exciting, and the young actors display that they clearly know what they're doing with weapons. If they're not convincing as characters, I would say they definitely pass as believable action heroes. To put the quantity of action and general violence in perspective, Red Dawn actually made the Guinness Book of World Records when it was originally released for having the most acts of violence in any film up until that time. It wasn't as excessively bloody as other films, but the sheer amount of war violence totaled about 134 per hour, or 2.23 acts of violence per minute. So yeah, Red Dawn definitely delivers on the quantity of action front. You do have to wait a while to get there, and then the talking sequences in between every action scene feel like they're taking forever because there's no dramatic grounding to get you involved whatsoever. Nonetheless, when the action hits, it hits with excitement. As a final note, let me sum up the legacy of Red Dawn in America. The operation that would lead to the successful capture of Saddam Hussein was actually named Operation Red Dawn. So this movie clearly has a lasting legacy in military circles. It's just a shame that the remake was so much of a forgettable piece of shit. Red Dawn gets 6 Wolverines out of 10. It has no character development, no dramatic substance, no storytelling sensibility whatsoever, and it falls completely flat. And yet the action is so fucking exciting that if it sucks you into that ridiculous action fantasy, it should hopefully distract you from that often enough. And that does it for today's episode of Delightfully Devilish, you guys. If you want to see more episodes of this show, please hit that subscribe button. If there are any movies you want to see me discuss on the show, please leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, until next time, I've been your host, Jukebox Harry. Wolverines!
Wolverine!